So UFC Hooker versus Tsarukyan just went down, and I am choosing the winners and losers of the card, who they should fight next, and yeah, let's get this started. So for the first fight on the card, I think Marek Bujalo and Denzel Freeman. For Marek Bujalo, we've got oh shit. For heavyweight, there's only about 20 something heavyweights. I think Marriage Bujalo should fight either. There's so many 0-1 fighters, but I think he should fight Max Jimenez. They're both grapplers. They're both 0-1. I think that's a good matchup. Or even Louis Sutherland. Louis Sutherland's a little bit of a actually, he's not a grappler. He got subbed within a couple of minutes. But yeah, that'd be a good fight. And for Denzel Freeman, pitter-patter performance, very average. I think he should fight either Brando Pericic or a Josh Hokett. Someone that's about 1-0, or 1-1. Taliesin Teixeira, that makes sense. But I think I like the Josh Hokett fight for him. So yeah, I think we book that. Make him go in a dogfight. For the next fight, it's on the card. We have Shamrock. I think Shamrock, if I'm not wrong, has lost his last 3 now. So if we look down the rankings, because he's going to be way down the bottom. These are all ineligible for rankings. They haven't fought. For Shamrock, I can't even see him. I'd be very surprised if he's up here. For Shamrock, maybe he's down here. Yeah, for Shamrock, he could fight one of these bottom lightweights, like a Gage Young, or maybe I can't find him. Doesn't matter. He could, like a like I said, a Shane Young, or maybe even a Harry Hardwick. They could fight for their contract. But yeah, we could book that. And for Nuro Aliev, it's very boring, very sort of safe approach to the fight. He could fight someone up in the rankings. Well, he's on a 2 or 3 fight win streak, so he could do maybe. We could do a Kyle Fernandez, or so he's 3-0 now. So if we go up a bit, we could do the Monkey King. That could be a good fight. Nurella Alia versus the Monkey King, both grapplers. Yeah, I think we booked that. That's a good fight. It's a good step up for him. I'm just going to delete this tab. And for the next fight, Ryan Loader. I think Ryan Loader's getting cut. He lost his last 3. But if they really do want to, book him, which I don't even think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure Ryan Loader's at the bottom of the list anyway. If I'm not wrong. Yeah. 1-1. He's going to be now 1-2. I guess he could fight a Nick Klein or a Jackson McVeigh. Jackson McVeigh lost his last 2. Yeah, that makes sense. I think they kind of want to keep Jackson McVeigh for one more fight. I think Ryan Loder's a good layup fight for him, so we could book that. And for Ismail Nurdiev, I think he's 2-1, 3-3. Okay, yeah. So he's 4 and he lost to the Iron Turtle and then he won his last two. So I think he goes up the rankings a little bit. You can't give him someone too crazy. We could give him a Brad Tavares if they want to give him a named fighter, or they could give them middleweight. Middleweight sucks. We could give him a. I think Brad Tavares is a good fight for him. It makes a lot of sense. Brad Tavares needs to go down. And what's the name needs Ismail needs to go up. So yeah, I think we booked that. Then we have Begzat Almakan and Alexandre Topuria. For Begzat, he has to go down. I think I've got 1 or 2 matchups for him. For Begzat, I think we give him. I saw him earlier. I think we give him Colby Thickness. Colby Thickness just won against Justice Misasa. And Alexandre just beat the shit out of him. So, and they're both previous Alexandre Topuria opponents. So I think we book that. Or if they don't like Begzat Alakan versus Colby, they could do a Carlos Vera. Carlos Vera is only 1-1. But I think I like the Colby Thickness fight. They both fought Alexandre Topuria. They're both real awkward on the feet. They're both pretty decent grapplers. So yeah, I think we booked that one. That makes a lot of sense. For Alexandre Topuria, I think he needs to go up. Not crazy amount, We could do Malcolm Wellmaker versus Alexandre Topuria. He's a named fighter. Malcolm Wellmaker just lost to Ethan Ewing, who's a dog fighter, man. They're both 2-1. They're both up and coming names. I think that makes a lot of sense. Or we could do Alexandre Topuria versus a. Bantamweight's pretty stacked. If they want to go even further up, they could do an Alexandre Topuria versus a. Depends on how they want to. Do they want to throw him to the Wolves, or we could do Alexandre Topuria versus a Cody Garbrandt if they want to give him a named fighter. Yeah, I think that's a good fight too. So either Cody Garbrandt or a Malcolm Wellmaker. I think that's really 2 good fights to make. So book that. And for the next fight, Rafael Kakera is getting cut, so we don't need to really worry about him. But for Abdul Rahman Yakev, I think he will want to make a quick turnaround. I've got 2 fights in mind for him. If it loads up. Okay. We could do him versus Jimmy Crute. But Jimmy Crute's pretty far up the rankings, so they probably would not go for that fight. He's 1-0. I could see him fight a Julius Walker. Julius Walker ain't that good, so I think that's a very winnable fight. Or I did like the Jimmy Crute fight, but I think, how about a Rodolfo Bellato? Yeah, I think that's a good fight. Rodolfo Bellato, or who did I say? I said someone else. We'll just say Rodolfo Bellato versus Jimmy Crute. I think that, or Jimmy Crute. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think we book that for Abdul. And for Perez, I hate to say it, I think they're going to cut him. Even though he was winning the fight, which is insane. And Perez has to fight outside of flyweight. And, I don't know what we, like, I honestly don't know what we do with Perez because that's a tough loss. Don't get me wrong, the guy's ranked. He's really good. But he has to fight outside the rankings, and I think we have to give him Charles Johnson. My glorious King Charles Johnson, who will come for the title. Yeah, man, I think Charles Johnson, he really needs a top 15 fight. And, Charles Johnson's really good. Perez is really good too, so if they really want to give it to him. How is Kai Asakura ranked in the top 15? That's insane. But yeah, I like that fight for Perez, Charles Johnson. Or if they want to not be as cruel as I'd say, I think they could give a Perez versus Tim Elliott. That could be a good fight. Tim Elliott's a very good flyweight. That'd be a very even and good fight for him. So I could see a Tim Elliott or a Charles Johnson to build up the name of Charles Johnson. For Asu Amabayev, he has to go up, obviously. I think he's going to probably be fighting the top 5. Kai France just got out of the rankings. He's going to be going for a while. It's a problem because everyone in that top, it's pretty hard to judge, but maybe Brandon Royval. I know that's a top spot, but he just lost a pretty, it was pretty close decision to Van. He lost that last round when he got dropped. Or if they don't want to put Asu up that much, we could do an Asu versus an Amir Albazi. I think that's a very even fight. I think I like the Amir Albazi fight for Asu Amabayev. So yeah, I think we book that. That's a good fight. And for the next fight, Nicholas Dalby gets the split decision win over Sagid Iskamaev. I thought Sagid won the fight, but we live on. We live on. So for welterweight, for Iskamaev, he's going to be fighting. I could see him. So he just lost. They could give him a... I don't know what his win streak is, though. That's the main problem. I guess we could give him yeah, it's really hard. A Carlos Liao. I just don't know his win or lose streak. We can give him a Carlos Liao or maybe a Themba Gorimbo. He's pretty named. What's his name? Sagid will come back. I think if you want to give him a named opponent, you give him Themba Gorimbo. Carlos Liao. I think I like the Carlos Liao fight a bit better for him. So I think we book that. And for Nicholas Dalby, I loved the fight. I loved the idea of him fighting. Where is he? Where is this beautiful boy? My boy Neil Magny. I think that's a good fight for Nicholas Dalby. Puts him up in the rankings again. I like the fight, the Battle of the Yunks. Neil Magny's a crafty dude, man. He'll fucking just come out of nowhere and fuck everybody's multi up. I really like the Nicholas Dalby versus Neil Magny fight. I think that's really good. If they don't think they want to bring him up that much, we could do Nicholas Dalby versus Zaleski dos Santos. I know he's fighting down, but Zaleski dos Santos is an older fella, so I think that's a good fight. But I like the Neil Magny fight the most with Nicholas Dalby. I think. Shit, where is he? I think that's a good fight. So yeah, I think we booked that one. For Bogdangrad, he was a 1-1 featherweight. He'll fight down the rankings. For Bogdangrad, I think we have to give him someone mid of the rankings. We could give him. Is he Robert Ruchala? I mean, he's 0-1. Or we could give a Bogdangrad a Khan Offley. That makes sense if Bogdangrad wants to make a quick turnaround. I think Bogdangrad versus Ramon Tavares. I think that makes a lot of sense. Ramon Tavares lost a pretty close to decision to Jack Jenkins. Bogdangrad versus Ramon Tavares. I think that makes sense. They'll fight for the contract. And for Luke Riley, he just fucking, he bombed his way through. I think a real cool fight would be him versus Jack Jenkins. Jack Jenkins is a really good up-and-comer in the featherweight division. Or if he doesn't want to fight on the Australian card, he could fight Touchy Feely. Touchy Feely's a really good name. And if they want to build the name of Luke Riley, I think that's a good fight, test for him. Andre Philly's looked a lot better in his last few fights, so I think we could book that. So yeah, I think we book that. And for the start of the main card, Tagir Ulanbekov, man, I'd like to see him go up the bantamweight. In flyweight? We're in featherweight. Okay. Ulanbekov is ranked number 12, so he's got to fight. He can fight Kaya Sakura. Kaya Sakura, he's still in the top 15. It's not that far down of a step down. Or if they want him fighting outside the rankings, I think Alan Nascimento makes sense. He's a big grappler in the flyweight division. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Alan Nascimento versus Tagir Ulanbekov. They're both named in the flyweight division, so book that. And for Horiguchi, man. Come on. Horiguchi's one of the best in the UFC. I don't see them. He's one of the best that was outside of the UFC. Came in and dominated Tagir. Tagir was an up-and-comer. He might have been at the worst out of the Khabib camp, but that's not saying much in my eyes. It's hard. I could see Horiguchi fighting a Tim Elliott. That could be an interesting fight. Or a Horiguchi versus a Brendan Moreno. Now, that would be a fun fight. Brendan Moreno, he's not going to be fighting for the title too soon, but Horiguchi is a name, man, because if Brendan Moreno gets that scalp on his resume, that'd be good. And if Horiguchi beats Moreno, he's already in the top 5. So, yeah, I think that's a good fight to make. Horiguchi versus Brendan Moreno, I think we booked that. And for Shamil the Blob, I have to feel bad for him because he took on Waldo Cortez Acosta. He got Waldo Cortez Acosta in 4 days' notice. That's crazy, man. And for Shamil, he's what? I think they rebooked that fight with Sergey. I think he wins that fight personally. I feel bad for Shamil because as soon as I saw the Waldo Cortez Acosta fight was booked, I knew it was game over, set match. But I got to give it to him. He did try and come forward, and with just swinging intent. I think we book Shamil versus Sergey again. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I mean, Sergey Spivak lost to Waldo Cortez Acosta too, so that makes a lot of sense. Or if Sergey doesn't want to fight Shamil, which kind of makes no sense because they're on a similar trajectory. I think Tai Tuivasa versus Shamil for Australia would be a good fight. Two absolute blobs. Tai needs to come back and get a win, otherwise he's getting cut. And Shamil, I think, wants to make a comeback, so that would be good. But I like Shamil versus Sergey. I think they should rebook that. And for Waldo Cortez Acosta, man, I've got one fight for him. I like Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Jailton Almeida. I think that makes all the sense in the world. Or Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Curtis Blades. Waldo Cortez Acosta just looked super impressive. I'd like to see him fight a top 5 guy, even though Jailton's just outside of top 5. I think that makes a lot of sense. He got a robbery loss to Alexander Volkov, which he deserves. He's fucking the way he fights sometimes, man. Or Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Curtis Blades. He just won a very close decision to Rizvan Kuniev, so I think I like those fights for Waldo. Book that. For Manson, I'd really like for him to hang it up. But if he's not going to hang it up at welterweight or, in general, I think we have to get him at the bottom of the welterweight rankings. If this is going to load. Yep. So if we look at the bottom of the rankings, whoa, this is crazy. We could give Hermanson a Gilbert Urbina. I've never rated the Urbina brothers. We could give him a Basil Hafez. I think that makes a lot of sense. They're both somewhat awkward strikers that are grapplers. I like that fight. We could do Basil Hafez versus Hermanson. I think we book that. Why am I going for Jonathan Cliff? And for Urabai, man, he looked fucking awesome tonight. I think we put him midway up the rankings. I like a Urabai versus Chidi Nikajuani. He lost to Jake Matthews, but he was on a good win streak before that. Or I don't know why the Leech is in the rankings. He's definitely not fighting anymore. Either Chidi Nikajuani or even an Urabai versus Jake Matthews for a quick turnaround. That could be a good fight. Urabai versus Matthews. I think we booked that. For the next fight, Volkan Oezdemir just ran through Alonzo Menifield. For Alonzo Menifield, he has to fight down the rankings. I think for Alonzo Menifield, who could we do? For Alonzo Menifield, he has to fight outside the top 15. Has he fought Dustin Jacoby? I think that would be a good fight. And if if he can't give the Dustin Jacoby fight, I like Ian Cutelaba. Ian Cutelaba is a really good fighter. What? That is strange. Anyway, I think Ion Cutelaba versus Alonzo Menifield makes a lot of sense. Gets a chance for Ion to get borderline top 15 and gives Alonzo a chance to prove himself again. So I think we book that. And for Volkan Oezdemir, man, I think he has to fight up. He knocked out Walker. Now he's knocked out Alonzo. I think we could give Volkan Oezdemir Khalil Roundtree. He just lost to Yuri. Yuri's a really good fighter. I think that would be a good fight. Or we could give... because Jamal Hill's in a way too big of a losing streak. I think he's going to get the loser of Bogdan Guzgov versus Jan Blachowicz. So I think Volkan Oezdemir versus Khalil Roundtree is a really good fight. I think we should book that. Yeah. And for Bilal Muhammad, man, I don't think he's going to give it up, but for him, I think there's really one fight in that division that makes the most sense. Because everyone's going to be taking like a long time off. I think Usman. I think it's Usman versus Bilal. I think that makes the most sense. They're both old. They're both They're both old. They're both he's on a 2-fight losing streak now, Bilal, and Kamaru wants to come back up, and they're both beefing on Twitter. So yeah, I think that makes the most sense. And for Ian Gary, I think there's like 2 fights for him at welterweight. It's either Islam for the championship, or if Shavkat doesn't come back in time to fight Islam, I think a number 1 contender fight with Michael Morales would be fucking sick. It makes all the sense in the world. If they give the title shot to Shavkat, it makes all the sense. And like Ian Gary, it was not a super close fight, but it was close enough where I wouldn't say he's warranted a title shot. Definitely, Morales won in way more impressive fashion over a guy who was on a great win streak, who was beating all the top guys. So yeah, I think Morales versus Ian Gary makes sense. But if Ian Gary gets the title shot, that doesn't surprise me. For the main event, Dan Hooker, got to give it to him. He did his best, but he just couldn't beat Arman. He was just better everywhere Arman was, and I have to give him that credit. For Dan Hooker, there's 2 fights I like for him. Now, I was thinking, we do fun fights for Dan. I think I like fun fights. Is Benoit that high up? Holy shit. Dan's number 6? I don't know why Benoit's there. I think we could do Dan Hooker. I know this sounds wild. Max Holloway for the BMF. That could be cool. But I think Max Holloway's going to be fighting Charles for the BMF. So, that's whatever. I think that's cool. But if Dan Hooker is not going to fight, Max, I think we could do Dan Hooker versus, where is he? The hell? Why's your Dan Hooker? What's going on? Is he just not in the rankings? Oh. That got me fucked up. I was like, who's Renato Canario? Yeah. Dan Hooker versus Renato Moicano. That makes sense. Money Moicano. I think we booked that. They're both like lengthy guys. One's a grappler, one's a striker. Renato brings a fight. I think Dan Hooker wins this fight, but I think that's a good fight to book. I was going to say Benoit, but I like the Benoit versus Paddy fight. So Dan versus Renato. I think it's a good fight. And for Arman, there's only 1 fight for Arman, and that's not Dan Hooker. That is Ilia Topuria. He's got the next title shot. He beat Dan decisively. He beat Charles decisively. He's beaten everybody, man. I think Arman's the only one that deserves a title shot. He's the number 1 contender, and that's it. If Ilia wants to dodge him for some unknown reason, I think Ilia sleeps him. But it's Arman versus Ilia for probably Paramount, I imagine. Arman didn't take any damage in that Dan Hooker fight, so yeah. Those are my picks for Hooker versus Tsarukyan. If you like the video, please like and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you all later. Well, the fight's to make. See ya.